So now I'm going to give you the critique on the Holstein 2-year-old cow class, which we placed 3, 2, 1, 4 with cuts of 2, 3, and 5. Hopefully you can appreciate by our cuts that we thought there was a really tough top pair and an obvious bottom cow. If you look at that top pair, we really gave the nudge to 3 for a couple of different reasons, and a lot of those were centered around the mammary system. So we definitely thought that 3 had the bloomiest udder of the class. She had the highest and widest rear udder attachment, greater venation through that udder, and a much stronger forward udder attachment with more length to that attachment. But it was not just the advantages in the mammary system that gave her the slight advantage over 2. It was the additional advantage in rear feet and legs. We felt she had the more desirable leg set, which was due to a more desirable slope from hooks to pins, which gave her greater flex to the hock as she moved around the ring. We also appreciated the fact that 3 had a much stronger front end, and she carried that width back through a wider set of pins. Now, we have to recognize that 2 had a slightly more level udder floor. In addition, she was the taller cow of the pair. However, we really thought that it was a slight advantages in some of the mammary quality, as well as those rear legs, that allowed her, the 3 cow, to place over her. Now, if we look over 2 over 1, that was a slightly easier placing, realizing that 2 was the longer, taller cow. She additionally was the more refined and chiseled cow of the class. So if we look at that bottom placing and why that 4 cow really easily sorted herself to the bottom of this class, and hopefully you all saw her and caught her, she was grossly overconditioned for today's class, so definitely appeared to be a stale cow in the class today. For those reasons, she lacks some of the bloom that we would have preferred to see in that mammary system. She was also had the most unbalanced, so hopefully you noted that she was light in the left rear quarter. So for those reasons, we really felt that she couldn't move any higher in the class today. So again, that was the quick critique on the Holstein 2-year-old cow class, which we placed 3, 2, 1, 4 with cuts of 2, 3, and 5.
I'm going to do a quick critique of our 4-year-old Jersey class. So we placed this class 4, 1, 3, 2 with breaks of 3, 3, and 4. As we start working our way through our class, we found that 4 made her way to the top fairly easily. We really appreciate the mammary system on this animal, so she has the highest and widest rear udder attachment as well as the longest and smoothest forward udder attachment. And in comparison to some of the animals in the class, she's also the most balanced through that rear udder with the most level udder floor and the most centrally placed and uniform teat size. But she also excels in frame, so she's strong across that top line, open and sweeping in those ribs, and broad through her front end, and that extends all the way to her rump structure. So we move down the line. Our number one animal in this class, again, follows that first place animal very closely in mammary strength, a higher rear udder attachment, more balanced in that rear udder as well. We do appreciate also her balance through her udder floor and the length of her forward udder attachment. And again, the frame on her is just more complete than the animals that follow her. She's stronger across her top, more open and sweeping through her ribs, and square through that rump structure. We also do really appreciate the centrally placed thurl on this animal and the levelness from hooks to pins. She again is one of the more dairy animals in the class, being clean through that face and neck, which gives her a slight advantage over our animal in first, but certainly not enough to push her above her. Our number 3 falls third in this class. She's lacking some of the youthfulness of udder that those above her have, so she starts to fall apart in that forward udder attachment. Is a little bit weaker in the rear udder attachment, and you also start to notice things like weaker pasterns, a little lower in those pins, and a little bit of a drop to the loin when she's on the move. She also is a touch over conditioned, so for all those reasons she falls a little lower in the class. Our bottom cow of 2 we thought was a fairly obvious bottom. She falls apart on the move. She's weak in the loin. Her mammary system can't compete with those above her. A fairly well-built animal, but just lacking some of the youthfulness and frame considerations of those above her. Altogether, we found that the class was fairly evenly split, first through third, with a fairly obvious bottom. Thanks, y'all.
So now I'm going to give you the critique on the Holstein 4-year-old cow class. This was by far my favorite class in today's contest. So this cow class we placed 2, 4, 3, 1 with cuts of 3, 3, and 4. So a difficult class all the way down the line, but probably your easiest placing should have been putting that 1 cow at the bottom. Now, if you look at these top 2 cows, man, you can't talk about more eye appeal and catchiness when these 2 cows come into the class, but I think they're for very different reasons. And we started the class today with that 2 cow. She was definitely the most complete cow. When you talk about combining mammary system, frame, dairy strength, feet and legs, she has the complete package today. She has the bloomiest udder, the levelest udder. She has the highest, widest rear udder attachment. She has a perfect set to those rear legs. She's chiseled down that top line. She has that depth in both the fore and rear rib that you're really looking for, as well as that width and spring of rib. Man, is she really what we would call stylish. And it's that style and that black hide when she comes in that really catches your attention. Now, that's not taking anything away from the 4 cow. 4 catches your attention for a different reason though, right? She is tall, she is long, she was inches above every other animal in this class in terms of height. And so that really grabs your attention, but hopefully it didn't take away from the fact that in order to beat the 2 cow today, we really needed to chisel her down. We really needed to chisel her down a little bit. We really needed to pick up that rear udder attachment. And we needed to drop that rear rib. So she was gonna move any higher, and it was a tough placing. I mean, you love the frame on this cow, but again, we're gonna have to chisel her down, pick up that rear udder, and really drop that rear rib down to move her any higher in the class today. As we move on down the line and we get down to 3 and 1, you know, we're dealing with some very different cows. And so if we look 4 moves over 3 for really that frame and that power that you see in her, when you move to that 3 cow, we're really seeing a cow that today was viewed as a little bit frail. All right, so we'd really like to see that animal strengthen up, give her a little bit more width through that chest. We actually need to put a little bit more condition on this cow. You can tell she's milking hard, but we need to give her some strength back. Remember, that's a dairy strength category, not a dairy character category anymore. So we need to add the strength to the dairiness to move this cow up any higher in the class today. But it is some of that femininity. It is the correctness of the mammary system and both levelness of the udder floor and balance of that rear udder when you view her from behind, as well as the more desirable size and shape that allows her to place over that 1 cow. Unfortunately, the 1 cow gets left at the bottom of the class today, not only because she lacks some of the frame qualities that we saw in the animals that placed above her, she was also over-conditioned and had some balance issues to that rear udder. So for those reasons, we placed this class of those Holstein 4-year-old cows 2, 4, 3, 1, again with those cuts of 3, 3, and 4. So I'm going to give you a really quick official for the Holstein Summer Heifer calves, which we placed 3, 4, 2, 1 with cuts of 5, 2, and 2. Hopefully you can appreciate by the cuts that we provided that there was an obvious top in this class in 3, and then the rest of the calves were a little bit more difficult to sort. So we went with the 3 calf, recognizing that she was by far the most complete calf. Maybe not the tallest to the point of the withers, but definitely the calf that exhibited the most maturity. Not only through that depth of rib, but as well as the width between the ribs, the flatness of bone, and the correctness to that rear leg set. Now I'm moving to our middle 2 calves. When we look at those 2 calves, we are talking about 2 calves that were taller at the point of the withers, so 4 and 2, but they lack some of the correctness in the rear feet and legs. In addition, they tended to be more tight-ribbed and shallow-bodied heifers. And if we look, that trend carried forward to that final placing 1 calf. 1 was placed at the bottom of the class today, not only for being tight-ribbed, shallow-bodied, but also having the worst set of feet and legs in the class, recognizing that she tended to be a little bit high in those pins, which really gave her that straight set to those rear legs. So really lacking some of the flex to the hock that we would have liked to see. So for those reasons, we placed this class of Holstein Summer calves 3, 4, 2, 1. So now I'm going to give you the critique for the Jersey Fall Yearlings, which we placed 1, 4, 3, 2 with cuts of 3, 2, and 4. Hopefully you can see by the cuts that we thought there was a top and a bottom and a more difficult middle pair. If you look with the heifer that we started the class with, 1, she was definitely the most complete heifer of the class. And by that we mean that she had the best set of feet and legs, she was the most structurally correct, and combined that with the most refined femininity of the other heifers. Though she might not have been the tallest heifer in the class, we did feel that she was the best combination of desirable traits of feet and legs, frame, in that dairy strength category. Now, if we look to the 2 heifers that followed her, 4 and 3, we mainly faulted them for issues with rear feet and legs. When you look at the 4 heifer, 4 really tended to have too much slope from hooks to pins, which tended to move that rear leg set up underneath her and give her too much set to that hock. In addition, 4 tended to be more tightly ribbed and lack some depth in both fore and rear rib, which we saw to a greater extent in the 1 heifer. Now, if we looked at 3 was a heifer, a popular heifer for those of you placing this class. We faulted 3 really for some of the rump structure. And so it was not only the fact that she was nearly level, which in some heifers is good, but in this heifer was a little too level from hooks to pins, which really tended to straighten out that rear leg sit and give her too much straightness, not enough flex to that hock. In addition, we saw that this was likely caused because of a weak or a loose loin, so she tended to break in that loin, and this really made her rough over that tailhead setting. Now, we did appreciate the depth in both the fore and rear rib of this heifer, but really thought that we were going to need a higher quality set of feet and legs in order to move her up any higher in the class today. Now, if we look at that 2 heifer, she was a tricky one. The 2 heifer was a complete heifer in terms of being structurally correct. The reason we left her at the bottom of the class today is she really wasn't showing the growth potential that we would have liked to have seen in a fall yearling heifer. So she was the smallest heifer in the class, lacking both stretch and length. In addition, because she was smaller in scale, she tended to be more over-conditioned when compared with some of her classmates. So for this reason, we really had to leave 2 at the bottom of the class. Again, you'd have to give her a little bit more strength and length for a fall yearling heifer and clean her up in order to get her any higher today. So again, for these reasons, we placed this class of Jersey fall yearling heifers 1, 4, 3, 2 with cuts of 3, 2, and 4.